we just did a story on this yesterday. The Clark County School District that encompasses schools in Las Vegas and in Nevada, their suicide rate among students has gone up to twice the amount that it was last year. This year they reported that they've had 18 suicides among students, which is just an unbelievable number. And it's very sad. And it's interesting because, CDC researchers have even recently found that being at school in person does not contribute to a significantly higher amount of COVID infection or death rates.
Right.
And so it's just insane that students still aren't able to go back to school with what we know about the virus, with what we know about the age of people that it affects a lot more. It's remarkable to me that we're still at this point where schools are not open. And, you think about all of the negative effects that this has had on children, on their mental health issues, on parents who aren't able to provide adequate childcare for their students while they have to stay at home and do online virtual schooling.
Right.
And even, on the economy, it's just all of these things culminated. It really doesn't make much sense to me why schools are still closed. So I wanted to ask you, why has it taken so long for schools to realize that they need to reopen?
Well, I mean, this specifically goes to the teachers' unions and the powers that they hold over public schools. And it's not, I think there are going to be some good things coming out of this, because we've seen that parents are starting to wake up to this. They're starting to wake up to the fact that teachers' unions care about teachers, but they don't actually care about the level of education that children are getting.
Big rise in homeschooling.
And, they want wage raises, they want more resources, but when it comes to increasing like test scores and performance from students, everything's remained flat for like 60 years, even though they've received roughly $10,000 more in funding in that same time, and that's adjusted for inflation. But they don't realize it because they don't care. They care. The teachers want what they want, and they're going to get it. And because we don't have school choice available to everyone in this country, they're allowed to get away with it.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. So this is also a subject near and dear to my heart. As I used to teach, my wife was a career educator. I taught for a number of years, but she spent her whole life pretty much until recently in education one way or another.
Yeah, my mom's a teacher too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. So Lisa and I actually taught at the same school for a couple of years. And I don't remember the numbers. What I do remember, I used to know the numbers. I don't anymore. I remember at the time, the school that we taught at, we spent significantly less money per student than public educators did. Significantly less. And had far better outcomes. And there are lots of different reasons for that. It's not solely an issue of money. Obviously, parental involvement is huge. And when you're at a private school, you tend to have people, they're making a decision about where they're going to spend their money. So they're consumers now. They care about quality, right? If we could fly everywhere in the country for free all the time, every airline's just kind of the same and it doesn't matter. But when you make a choice, I fly on Southwest because it's a little cheaper usually and the people are nice. And that's really simple. Schools don't have that issue to the degree that that private school is not accessible to folks because of expense, lack of vouchers, et cetera. There just isn't any competition there. Charter schools help with that. I'm not a huge fan of charter schools because they are still essentially government schools. The great folks at Hillsdale College would disagree with me, and I'm a big supporter of Hillsdale College, and they're big into charter schools, so I don't want to, ruffle their feathers too much, but I don't think that ultimately is the answer, because at the end of the day, charter schools are still run by the government. They're still regulated by the government. And the answer, as Reagan said so well, government is not the solution to the problem. It is almost never. And that almost is really small. Almost never the solution to the problem. It is the problem. Teachers' unions are just a great example of how teachers give money to unions. And it's not usually the teachers. There are sometimes teachers who are the problem.
Yeah.
And I get that just because there are bad apples everywhere. So there are some, just like there's a bad cop once in a while who gives a lot of cops a bad name, right?
Yeah.
There's some bad teachers out there. Of course there are. And if you're a teacher, you know them. And if you're a teacher and you think you don't know any, it's you. Let's just make that clear. So, there's a little lesson in self-awareness. But it's mostly the unions. And the unions take money from the teachers. They give it to Democrats. Democrats then put things in place that make sure that teachers' unions stay in power so that they can get more money and give it to Democrats. And that's the cycle over and over and over again. Unfortunately, it's a cycle with pretty much every union now. And so, the reason, the very long answer to your short question, Deborah, that it takes so long for schools to make these, or school administrations to make this realization, is they have zero motivation to do it. We do what we're paid to do, what we're motivated to, and by paid, that can be money or it could be other things that we're paid in, satisfaction, whatever. But we do what we are rewarded for doing.
And you got these teacher unions are typically in bed with Democratic politicians, and so you mix.
Typically is putting it lightly.
You mix.
They are both chained to the bed together. That's how that works.
You mix
not to stress that metaphor too badly.
So you add the power that those unions have to the narrative that COVID is this world-ending thing, and that's how you get schools not wanting to go back.
We're done with COVID now, though. Yeah. Because, did you see the New York Times headline this morning?
Oh, my goodness.
COVID's plummeting now that Biden is in office for a week. COVID's not going to be a problem anymore.
It doesn't even exist anymore.
Wear 2 masks anyway, but COVID who? Yeah. Sorry.
And it's interesting that you bring up Democratic legislatures, because I know, definitely in a lot of the overly populated states that are Democrat, like California and New York, the schools still have not opened.
Yes.
And it's absolutely insane that they haven't realized, again, what we were talking about earlier, that they haven't realized all of the negative effects that this has had on children.
And the CDC is calling for them to get back into the classroom. No experts are saying, I shouldn't say no experts, because that term can be broadly applied to anybody.
Cuomo just has decided he self-identifies as an expert.
Generally, the people that the left have been following in terms of COVID guidance are telling them to get back into the classroom, get kids back in the classroom. They're not doing it.